Be inspired, supported, and empowered. This is the Global Healthy Living Foundation podcast network.
Welcome to Talking Head Pain, the podcast that confronts head pain head-on. I'm Joe Coe, Director of Education and Digital Strategy at the Global Healthy Living Foundation. I've been a migraine patient since I was a teenager, and so is today's guest, Tom Dabertin. Tom is the Executive Director and CEO of the National Headache Foundation, and through his work is advancing migraine care and bringing important information to those who need it. Hey, Tom, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Joe, and thanks so much for having me as a guest.
And how are you feeling today, Tom?
I'm feeling pretty well. I am an individual who not only works in the area of headache and migraine, but I actually have had migraine since I was 17 years old. Still remember the very first time that I had a migraine headache. I was actually at a basketball practice in high school, and my coach told me I needed to grin and bear it. And I remember the sharp pain through my head and the auras and the sensitivity to sound. It felt as though the basketball was literally pounding against my head. And I remembered that I went home and slept for hours. And that's my first experience with migraine. I'm fortunate that as I've gotten older, my migraines have been less severe as far as headache pain, for example. There was a time in a place where you could pile all the world's pillows on my head and it would still be too loud and too bright in the room. And I'm lucky in the fact that now my migraines generally are kind of a low-grade migraine where I have some impact to my vision. I get the auras, for example, but I don't get the full-on sharp headache. However, after I have a migraine, I still have some of the same symptoms. I'll feel somewhat nauseated during it, but afterwards I need to sleep. I feel as though I've run a marathon for days and just have a huge need for sleep and just totally mentally and physically worn out from the episode.
I can certainly relate to that feeling, especially after. We don't talk about that a lot, the physical and emotional impact that we have to now address after a really intense attack. I want to circle back. You talked a little bit about being a teenager developing migraine and playing sports. Did that impact the rest of your high school and college life in any significant way?
It did. I remember having migraines when I was in college. And remembering trying to study for exams and how difficult it could be. The fact is that I'm going to be 62 years old this summer. So back in the late 1970s, when you told someone you had migraine, and especially if you were a male, I can remember one professor saying to me, "Nice try. My wife gets migraines. Men don't get migraines." And so they just didn't understand. But times have changed, and I think there's a more widespread understanding that migraine exists. There is still a lot of misinformation and lack of knowledge on how it affects the individual and what the triggers are and the treatments and the preventatives. So there's still a lot of education that needs to occur out there, but it's certainly better than it was 40, 50 years ago.
You mentioned that you dealt with migraine while in college. Do you have any advice to give to students that are in college who might be away from family support and other safety nets?
Sure. First and foremost, go to your student health center and seek treatment. Don't wait. Don't wait until you get home to see the family physician. We are working as part of the foundation's initiatives. We have a program called Migraine University, where it's an outreach program to both students and to practitioners at student health centers throughout the nation's college and university system to better educate those practitioners and better educate patients. Check when there is a health fair on campus. There's probably a pretty decent chance that we're going to have a presence, or we're at least going to have information available for you to better understand your circumstances and your situation. And remember this, Migraine, for example, it differs in every individual. So the symptoms that I may have may not be the same symptoms that you have. And make sure that you talk to that health services facility, to the staff there, and seek some treatment. Don't try to don't try to live with it until you get home to visit the family physician.
I hope so. And that's why we do the work that we do and that you do at the National Headache Foundation, is to make it better. Did you find that it took a significant amount of time to get diagnosed, or after that episode on the basketball court, did you see a doctor and they tell you that it was migraine?
I did go see the family physician. The family physician actually just said, well, it's probably stress. Or it might be sinuses, and didn't understand that it was migraine. It wasn't until I actually sought some treatment at a teaching hospital in the Chicago area, the University of Chicago, that I actually got relief. And they were able to explain there were certain things that I could do to avoid migraine and also to be treated. And I don't recall what the prescription was that they gave me, but it was just it was a miracle drug, because otherwise I had these very, very sharp pains in my head. I used to liken it to if you took a hot poker and ran it through the roof of your mouth out through the top of your head. That's how sharp the pain was. And it was really unbearable. I remember one specific incident. My son was about 5 years old, and I can remember him coming into my bedroom. I was, trying to sleep off the migraine and had, terrific pain. And I remember him being upset and said to me, Daddy, you don't want to play with me? And I'll never forget that, because I was close to my kids, and it was just heartbreaking, because here he's 5 years old and he didn't understand. And I guess that's a personal story that a lot of individuals with migraine can attest to, that it's not just the pain and the physical exhaustion, it's the interruption to family life. I would do anything to play with my son and to enjoy those times. But in that one case, I couldn't function. I couldn't stand up. I was unable to obviously go out and play with him on a beautiful sunny day. So for a 5-year-old, he didn't understand that.
How did you reconcile those feelings of needing to take care of yourself and not being able to, and seeing your 5-year-old wanting you to be present?
Well, it really was the motivation for me to go see someone and get some professional treatment. And that's one of the shortcomings associated with migraine, is that not enough people go out and seek professional treatment, and there's not enough individuals who provide professional treatment. So the National Headache Foundation has two really key programs as it relates to practitioners. One is a long-standing program called the Added Qualification in Headache Medicine. We provide a certification for those practitioners who focus on headache. Sadly, we're one of 2 organizations that provide that certification. And if you add up all of these headache specialists in the United States, it's less than 1,000. And you're looking at a population of about 40 million with migraine and another 12 million with chronic headache disorders. The ratio of practitioner versus patient is just off the charts. And we're working to promote that specialization. At the same time, we also realize that most practitioners, most physicians, for example, if you look at physicians, nurse practitioners, and physician assistants, physicians usually receive less than 2 hours of total classroom training as it relates to headache, and not a lot of continuing education out there. So the National Headache Foundation this past September launched a program called Primary Care Migraine, and it's a 2-hour training, 2 credit hours, for those practitioners to be able, they can download it on their computer, they can watch it on their phone. It's downloadable both Android and iPhone, and you can watch it on your phone, you can watch it on a computer, you can start and stop. There are 4 modules When you complete the training, you'll have 2 hours of CE. You'll also have a terrific diagnostic tool, set the 7 most common symptoms of migraine. And there's also a full listing of all the acute and preventative therapies that are currently approved by the FDA for the treatment of migraine. Our hope is to get this out to as many people as possible. Now, we're already certified for, as I mentioned before, physicians, nurse practitioners, and physician assistants. In fact, the American Academy of Physician Assistants has certified us in addition to the certification that we already had. But we're working with right now with a number of entities to become certified for pharmacists and pharmacy technicians. And we believe that that certification will be available sometime in late June or early July. And we think that's important because this day and age, a lot of people use quick clinics, urgent clinics that are located in retail pharmacies. And when those clinics aren't available, or because they are there, a lot of individuals will seek out the advice of a pharmacist or a pharmacy technician and ask them about OTCs. There are plenty of good OTCs out there, over-the-counter medicines, but unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation. So, over-the-counter pain medicines for muscle aches is not going to do much good for migraine headache. And unfortunately, again, because of a lack of training, sometimes those errors are made. So what we're trying to do is expand the availability of that training now to pharmacists and pharmacy technicians.
It's amazing. And working with primary care and pharmacists is so important because so many of us, that's the front line of healthcare. And we're likely not going to see a neurologist, let alone a headache specialist. I know I was treated by my general practice provider until 2 years ago and relatively well, but felt like I needed to step it up. But big fan here at GHLF of Walgreens. So anything that we do at pharmacists that we can raise them up, we love because they do such important work. In addition to identifying different issues, but also in getting us access to our treatments. Like the specialty pharmacist or the retail pharmacist will help you navigate copay assistance programs and all these other things that as a chronic disease patient, as someone living with a disease like migraine, it's one less thing that we have to do. So I think that work that the National Headache Foundation is doing is really great.
Yeah, and we've been partnering with Village Medical, which is the operator of the urgent clinics inside Walgreens, and also with Kroger Little Clinics, which is Kroger's urgent care facilities, and with the Convenient Care Association, so that we can make sure that we're providing the kind of education and the kind of information that those practitioners really need to serve the larger population. Again, we know that it's going to be a long time before we can substantially increase the number of headache specialists in this nation. But if we can raise the bar for primary care and the 650,000 primary care practitioners, including pharmacists, we can make a tremendous difference and positive difference in the treatment of migraine and headache disorders.
I want to dig a little deeper about your why. Why do you feel passionate about this work, and why do you choose to lead an organization such as the National Headache Foundation?
Well, I spent 20 years prior to coming to the National Headache Foundation as a certified management consultant. And I worked with a lot of not-for-profits. And so I know the not-for-profit industry well. I also held a very senior position at the Museum of Science and Industry previously in my career. And so I enjoy the not-for-profit space. I've worked in the private sector, I've worked in government, I've worked in not-for-profits. And to me, not-for-profit management and leadership is the most challenging, because unlike the others, you just can't go out and increase revenues. You have to be strategic in what you do. And so I find it very, very challenging, and I find it extremely rewarding to be able to make a difference. The fact that I'm able to make a difference in the lives of people who are affected by migraine, and having had migraines myself, I can understand firsthand what they go through. I want to make sure that the next person that has a 5-year-old, for example, doesn't have to give up that day, that they can go out and they can enjoy the day with their children and with their family, and do all the things that we want to do instead of endure another migraine attack. So to me, it's very rewarding to be able to know that I can make a difference.
That's really amazing. And thank you for that difference that you're making. Let's have a little fun now. I read in your bio that you created the Pierogi Festival in Indiana. Can you talk to me about the Pierogi Festival and what brought you to that?
Sure. So Pierogi Fest actually is a very well-known festival, draws all kinds of national attention. We just recently were named by MSN as one of the best festivals in the United States. Last year, we were named by Reader's Digest as one of the 15 best festivals in North America. We've gotten similar honors from Yahoo, from the Wall Street Journal, from TripAdvisor, and from Oprah Winfrey Magazine. So we've gotten a lot of acclaim. It is a festival that is run exclusively. It's run and organized by volunteers, about 600 volunteers. And it's held in a small town called Whiting, which I grew up in and my family has lived in for over 120 some years. And it's located just outside Chicago. And when we originally came up with the idea, we had no idea that, of course, Pierogi Fest would be so popular. But it was really a way to celebrate, kind of have a fun celebration of ethnic heritage. And one thing about Pierogi Fest is whether you are Polish, Slovak, Italian, Hungarian, your roots can be from South America, from Africa, from Asia. People enjoy the festival. It's wacky, it's fun, it's entertaining, and we have one of the best food menus of any festival in North America. Savar magazine, which is a food cuisine magazine, pointed that out some years ago, that our menu is so exhaustive. And the reason why is because we limit the number of duplications. So with the exception of pierogies and maybe a few other East European dishes, we limit the number of people selling, say, elephant ears. There might be only one elephant ear vendor, even though we draw over 350,000 people.
So I have a couple of questions about
Sure.
pierogies. What's the most unique pierogi that you've come across?
So you're asking, actually, when it comes to pierogies itself, I always say that I don't eat them so I can save them for everybody else to savor. I have never been a huge fan of pierogies per se. I think the most unique that I've seen is we had alligator stuffed pierogi at the festival, and that was up through the pandemic. I don't know if we'll see it. We did have kind of a soft launch last year of the festival again, so I would think that we'll have alligator stuffed. We've had the ones that are probably most interesting to me. You can bake them, you can fry them, you can boil them. There are so many ways to cook them. I've seen them even cooked on an open grill. But there's also fruit stuffed pierogies, and they're kind of deep fried. It's kind of almost like a deep fried donut with a jelly inside, kind of like a deep fried punchki. And so those are very popular. But the mainstays, the cheese and the meat and sauerkraut are still probably the three most popular versions.
I don't know why my head goes to potato, or
Potato is right up there. I'm sorry, I left potato out.
Yeah,
sorry.
I hate potato. So is it a scandal? Are we breaking news that you don't really eat pierogies?
Well, it's actually
know
been
this?
documented. It's been documented before that I don't really eat pierogies. It's kind of a fun twist. Again, Pierogi Fest is fun. It's designed to be a little quirky and a little outrageous. And so it's kind of fun that the chairman doesn't eat pierogi. And I have been interviewed a number of times over the years and been asked why I don't. And again, my answer is that I'm leaving them for you and everyone else.
That is very noble of you, Tom. How will people find out more information about the National Headache Foundation?
You can go to headaches.org. We have a great website. We have lots of materials, lots of learning opportunities. I do want to mention that we're shortly going to be launching a series of both live forums and training videos for veterans and for those in the military, because we know that those who serve this country with their lives are affected by migraine more so than the general population. And so we're doing some veteran-centric training videos that will be hosted on our website and other social platforms. And those will launch shortly. And you can go to our website, though, and pull up all kinds of information. You can even pull up a list of individuals who have completed either the AQH certification or the UCNS certification, which makes them headache specialists, or at least you can find out if they've completed the primary care migraine certification.
Amazing. And I'll also remind folks that the National Headache Foundation has a podcast called Heads Up, and I had Lindsay on the show a bit ago, and I think I was on Heads Up. And it's, if you're into podcasts and you're listening to this one, you can go over to Spotify and Apple and all those fun places and type in Heads Up and subscribe there too.
Yeah, it's really, it's been a very successful program. Lindsay does a great job. And, it's amazing. Again, thinking back to my own situation in the 1970s, there was really nowhere for me to get information. What's great about this point in time is that we have a more educated population than ever. You can go online and you can pull up information on just about anything. If your dishwasher isn't working correctly, you can pull up a video that'll tell you what's wrong with your dishwasher. Well, what we're trying to do is provide information that people can pull up and find out what's wrong when you have those severe headaches, when you have that nausea, when you have those auras, when you have that a sensitivity to sound. We want to give people information, and that's really our key mission, whether the information is for certification for practitioners or information for veterans or information for the general public.
Amazing. Well, I'm all out of questions. Was there anything that I missed that you would want me to ask?
No, you're such a great host. You're so thorough and do a fantastic job. But we're very pleased to be able to talk to listeners about the things that we can offer, and we're looking forward to some continued success with our different programs. And once again, I think it's just key for everyone to understand how many people are affected by migraine and by chronic headache disorder. It's not just something that maybe your partner or your spouse or your child has. The fact is that it's 52 million people over age 18 that are affected. It's a huge number of individuals in this nation, and it's our goal at the National Headache Foundation to try and educate everyone on how those headaches can be avoided, how they can be treated, how the impact can be reduced, and we've got a pretty large encompassing mission and a lot to do, but we're proud to do it.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Talking Head Pain, the podcast that confronts head pain head on. If you like this episode, please give it an honest 5-star rating and subscribe so you never miss another one. I'm Joe Coe, and I will see you next time.
Be inspired, supported, and empowered. This is the Global Healthy Living Foundation Podcast Network.